Let's talk tight ends. Joining me today with his top 10 for the fantasy football season, senior fantasy analyst at Sports Illustrated, Michael Fabiano. Fabs, let's count them down, starting with your fourth tier.
And we'll start off with Noah Fant, who I have at number 10. And Fant is a guy who finished in the top 12 in fantasy points last year. And I really think Seattle's going to lean on the tight ends this upcoming campaign. They're going to be a run-first team, but Drew Lock and Geno Smith will also be looking to the tight end, so Noah Fant should see plenty of opportunities. At number 9, Zach Ertz, who was one of the top tight ends in fantasy football last year when he was traded to the Arizona Cardinals. And remember, the Cardinals won't have DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 games, so Ertz should remain a very solid option. And then at number 8, his former teammate, Dallas Goedert. Now, Goedert did lose a little bit of his luster because the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown, but I think he'll still remain one of the most targeted tight ends in the National Football League, so Goedert rounds out my tier 4.
Moving on to tier 3, who you got?
And we've got a pair of young tight ends who are looking to make their impact once again. And at number 7, it's T.J. Hockenson. Hockenson was a very strong option for fantasy managers last year before he got hurt. Now, the Lions did bring in some competition, of course, in terms of the targets, DJ Chark, Jameson Williams, but Hockenson still will be a popular target for Jared Goff. And then Dalton Schultz, and his value just rose this week again, right? No Amari Cooper, and now James Washington is out. The Cowboys are down several wide receivers. Right now, you're looking at CeeDee Lamb, who is a top 5 wide receiver at this point, and also Jalen Tolbert. After that, listen, Dalton Schultz is going to see a lot of targets. In fact, I may move him up into another tier as we move on through the month of August. So Hockenson and Dalton Schultz come in tier 3.
And speaking of that next tier, who is currently above Dalton Schultz?
At number 5, I've got George Kittle, who's been one of the top tight ends in fantasy football for the last few years. Now, Trey Lance will be the quarterback there. We haven't seen him a lot in terms of regular season action, but Kittle is still a guy who's going to demand targets in that offense. At number 4, Darren Waller. And folks, his value is going to decline a little bit, right? Because, well, now you've got Devontae Adams in the mix, so the target share is going to decrease. But Darren Waller is still one of the more talented tight ends in the National Football League, and Derek Carr loves to throw to that position. And at number 3, Kyle Pitts, who had one of the best rookie seasons of all time among tight ends. I just wish he scored more touchdowns, and I think that'll happen this year, even though Marcus Mariota will be the quarterback in Atlanta. Pitts could end up being a top 2 tight end in fantasy, and who knows, maybe he'll even unseat the top 2 guys on my list at the end of the season.
Speaking of those top 2 guys, if I want to go big early on tight end, who am I picking?
And these 2 players will cost you a top 30 pick. And number 2 is Mark Andrews. He was the number 1 tight end in fantasy football last year. He was amazing. The numbers were bananas. His second half was historical. I do think he's going to see regression, though. All right, and the Ravens are a team that's going to run the football, but he'll still see targets. I mean, really beyond Rashad Bateman, the Ravens don't have a real solid, secure wide receiver core, so Andrews will continue to get his. He'll be drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. And then, of course, number 1, I've got Travis Kelce. And I get it. No Tyreek Hill. Maybe more defensive attention goes his way, but Kelce has been the number 1 tight end in fantasy football 5 of the last 6 years. And you know Patrick Mahomes is going to throw him the football because they have the best rapport in that Chiefs pass attack because there's so many new parts. So Andrews comes in at 2, Kelce at 1, and I could see scenarios where Kelce is a late 1st round pick, but I see him more as a 2nd round selection.
For all of our fantasy football information, be sure you check out si.com/fantasy. We have a fantasy football kit. And don't leave before hitting the subscribe button and click that bell so you get notified as we bring you all our videos throughout the season.